प्रभो जय जय माखन चोर, जय जय माखन चोर। श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की, श्रीमती राधा रानी की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की। उपस्थित
Hare Krishna, kindly accept my humble obeisances. I extend my heartfelt gratitude and obeisances at the lotus feet of all the senior Vaishnavas of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I also extend my deep gratitude to all the devotees who have assembled here on Zoom platform, both in English and Hindi language. I also extend my humble obeisances to the devotees who always join us on YouTube and Facebook, and my special gratitude and heartfelt thanks and a warm welcome to Makwana family who have organized this beautiful katha in the loving memory of Bechar Bhai, his wife Parvati Ben Makwana, and the three generations of our family, her son and daughter-in-law Dayal Bhai and Bimla Ben, and their sons Kair Bhai and daughter-in-law Kokila Ben, and also Ankur Bhai and daughter-in-law Bhumi Ben, and their daughter Misty. So I welcome each one of you to the fourth day session of 307th Katha. And I also extend my warm greetings on the eve of Sri Radhastami Mahotsav. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Radhe Shyam.
अब यहाँ पर अमेरिका में आज राधा अष्टमी है। सो मैं टोटली राधा अष्टमी के मूड में था, परंतु अभी अभी अमित नारायण प्रभु ने निवेदन किया कि राधा अष्टमी कल मनाएंगे, हम कल अभिषेक करेंगे।
So you see, in America, Radhastami is being observed and celebrated today. So I was in full mood. In zone of US, Canada, we are celebrating Radhastami today. In India, it is being celebrated tomorrow. So now I'm in a fix that when do I celebrate it? So you see, I want to keep everyone happy. We would ensure that everyone stays happy, that we would listen to the Katha of Srimati Radharani's appearance today as well as tomorrow. Well, you should know this, that Radharani appeared at three places. Number one, at Golok, and at the brother of Himachal.
वृषभानु बाबा कीर्तिदा देवी के घर पर श्रीधाम बरसाने में हुआ। सो किसी को बुरा न लगे।
Now, so you see, everyone would be enjoying it happily. So we will talk about the birth and appearance of Srimati Radharani today as well as tomorrow. So for today, we will be talking about the appearance of Srimati Radharani at Golok Vrindavan, and tomorrow we will talk about the appearance of Srimati Radharani at Barsana, and we will do Abhishekam, Kirtam, and we would celebrate the wonderful festival. So just some time back, we have celebrated the appearance day of Sri Krishna Chandra, and we sang and we celebrated very nicely.
तो भक्तों श्रावण महीने की अष्टमी के दिन
So, on the 8th day of month of Shravan, appearance day of Shri Krishna at Nand's house.
महा आनंद का प्रकट होना,
So it was only, happiness
जो महा आनंद
which was happening at the place of Nand Maharaj, but the grand happiness and grand celebrations shall happen at the house of Shri Vrishbhanu Maharaj and Kirtida. I must say, Kirbhai, you have really planned it pretty well that in the same katha we would be talking about appearance of Srimati Radharani twice. So all those who have been regular listeners, you see, if I wake them up at 2 o'clock, if I wake them up and ask them what is the first utterance of Sriman LalGovindDas in the very beginning, then you see, I have observed this ever since I have been sitting at Vyaspeeth. The first utterance of mine is Srimati Radharani's. Because we are all, and I'm also a servant to Srimati Radharani.
लेकिन वह दो पद आप सबको याद हैं, राधे मेरी स्वामिनी,
But you all have by hearted this very nicely.
जन्म मोहे दीजियो श्री वृंदावन वास, राधा तू बड़ भागिनी, कौन तपस्या कीन है, तीनों लोक के नाथ, सो तेरो आधीन। तो अब साल भर तो हम इसे गाते हैं, क्यों न राधा अष्टमी के पर्व पर इस पद को थोड़ा सा समझने का प्रयास करें।
So let us try to understand this verse on the grand pious occasion of Sri Radha Ashtami. So let us try to understand this. I'm sure and confident that you have learnt it by heart. Radhe meri Swamini, मैं राधे को दास।
यहीं पर गड़बड़ हो गई। क्या गड़बड़ हो गई? यदि मैं आपको पूछूं कि इस संसार का प्रत्येक जीव,
if I was to ask you that every living entity of this material world, who are they slave to? You need to answer this with elements keeping in at center. On the bank of Ganga Ji at Varanasi, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatan Goswami conversation happened, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said something like this. What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? That what is the nature of the living entity?
शक्ति भेदा भेद प्रकाश। अब मामला तो बिगड़ गया यहाँ पर। भगवत गीता में कृष्ण कहते हैं कि ममे
Bhagvat Gita, Lord Krishna says that, O Arjun, in this entire world, all the living entities are nothing but they're all a part of me. And because they're all a part of me, therefore they're all my slaves, because they're all a part of me. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is directly telling this to Sri Jiva Goswami, that the basic nature of a living entity is that they are eternal servants of Lord Krishna. So keeping this logic in mind, you see, all the living entity and the souls are eternal servants of Sri Krishna. But you see, we are saying something which is little different. We all say that we are eternal servants of Srimati Radharani.
प्रश्न होना चाहिए। आज तक मुझे किसी ने प्रश्न नहीं पूछा कि प्रभु आप जब भी कथा करते, मैं कम से कम हजारों बार तो गा चुका होगा, लेकिन कोई एक बंदा तो मिले कि प्रभु गीता में लिखा है कि जीव कृष्ण का।
You see, nobody has ever raised this question to me that in Chaitanya Charitamrut, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that we all are eternal servants of Sri Krishna. Even in Bhagvat Gita, Lord Krishna himself claims that all the living entities are his eternal servants. So, now try to answer this question, that we all are slaves to whom? Srimati Radha Rani or Shri Krishna? So if you consider the form in mind, you see, or if you consider from duty's point of view, you see what we are talking about is of a very high level, must be going bouncer on somebody for sure. So have you ever seen a bottle, be it that of distillery or that of wine, anything? So there is a cap at the top. Now, once there was a dialogue going on between bottle and the cap, and I was becoming a witness to that conversation. So why are you devotees laughing? When you people as husband and wife can talk, why can't a bottle and the cap can converse to each other? Now this cap was telling something to bottle. Would you be interested to know? All right, let me share this with you. The cap of the bottle was telling to the bottle, oh bottle, there is so much of water in you. And with so much of water in you, you fill so many glasses, countless glasses. But I stay with you all the time, but you have never filled me with a drop of water.
और मैं तो छोटा सा ढक्कन, लेकिन तूने मुझे कभी नहीं भरा। भाई मुझे तो कभी भरो, मेरे अंदर तो कभी पड़ो, मेरे अंदर तो।
You should also fill me with water sometime. Then the answer that bottle gave, it is really worthy to be understood. Bottle said that I have filled thousands of glasses, because glasses stay at the bottom, and I never filled you because you stay at the top of me. Those who stay at the lotus feet of sages and saints, those who attempt to understand the glory and the pastimes of the Lord at the lotus feet of a sage and saint, they are filled with the knowledge of Shastras, devotion, and bhakti. So when we are unable to understand the principles of the Shastras, we must take refuge at the lotus feet of a sadhu and a saint, and we will be able to understand this. So this is the term understand, which
स्टैंड हो गए तो अंडरस्टैंड होगा। हमारा क्या है ना, हमें सिर पर बैठना है और कहते हैं कि हमें समझ में नहीं आ रहा। कैसे समझ में आएगा? 2400 घंटा वह ढक्कन बोतल के साथ रहता है, लेकिन भाव से भरता नहीं, वो रस से भरता नहीं।
So you see, the cap of the bottle always remain at the top, and that's why it's never filled with water. So if and only if we can surrender ourselves at the lotus feet of a sage or a saint, for sure we would be able to understand the Shastras. So dear devotees, let us all come together, and by entering into the surrender mode and mood, we should attempt to understand the principles of the Shastras. So in Chaitanya Charitamrut, Lord Chaitanya said that all the living entities are eternal servants of Krishna, and the same thing, has also been uttered by Lord Krishna in Bhagvat Gita, that all living entities are the slaves of Krishna because they all emanate and emerge from him. But Lal Govindas every day sings that I am the eternal servant of Srimati Radharani. So let us try to know the difference. So if you look at it from the duty's point of view, the point of view of duty or obligation, every living entity is the servant of Sri Krishna because it is Sri Krishna who produced, who made every entity, because this soul emanates from the Paramatma, from the super soul, and hence the duty and the obligation of this soul is to serve the super soul. Why? Because the soul has come into formation due to super soul. So if you consider this mood, that soul considers that it is super soul which has produced me, that I have to serve the super soul, this mood, the soul is the eternal servant of Sri Krishna. So from obligations point of view, from duties point of view, we all are the servants of Sri Krishna. But you see that there is one more mood which is higher than this mood. Now you see, for example, consider the husband and the wife. Now the wife serves the husband because the wife feels that because he is my husband that I have to serve him. But the other higher elevated mood can be that yes, it is my duty to serve my husband, but because also I love my husband, that's why I am serving him. So serving Krishna as an obligation or as a duty, with this mood, every living entity becomes servant and slave of Lord Krishna. So those who serve Krishna, considering Krishna as their Lord, so they are the servants of Krishna. But if one engages in lovable service, loving service, then such individuals, such living entity, those who serve Krishna out of the love, so for such entities, Radharani would be considered as a guru to all such living entities. So serving or acting as a servant by way of obligation and duty is a normal mode. But the aspect of serving Krishna, the aspect of being in service to Lord Krishna out of love and affection would be the mode of Haladini potency of Shri Krishna.
लेकिन दूसरा भाव उससे भी ऊंचा क्या होगा, ये मेरे प्राण प्रिय है, मैं इससे प्यार करती हूँ, मैं प्रेम करती हूँ और इससे
So for example, if a girl fulfills all her duties as a householder towards the husband because he is her husband, but in addition to this, if the girl or the wife feels that I am doing all this to please my husband, to please my life partner, then this nature is called as Haladini potency. And the living entity which has this mood and feel in the heart that he has to serve Krishna because of his love towards Krishna, then for them, Srimati Radharani is the Guru, and this living entity is the eternal servant of Srimati Radharani. Now it is up to you whether you want to become eternal servant of Srimati Radharani or that of Sri Krishna. It is completely up to you. Even the Shastras have said something like this, which you can hear what Prabhuji is saying.
ये हलादिनी वृत्ति वाले जो भक्त है, वो
The devotees who are derived by Haladini potency are always the eternal servants of Srimati Radharani.
जिसके हृदय में
Now,
कृष्ण
please
को
understand this.
प्रेममयी भावना से, कर्तव्य भावना से नहीं, जबरदस्ती है, अब क्या करे, वो उसने पैदा किया है तो अब सेवा करनी, कर्तव्य भावना से नहीं, प्रिय भाव से, प्रेयसी भाव से, प्रेम भाव से, जिसके हृदय में कृष्ण को प्रसन्न करने की भावना है, वहां श्रीमती राधा रानी उपस्थित है, क्योंकि कृष्ण को प्रसन्न
If a
करने की
living entity has the desire of serving Lord Krishna because of love and affection, because he wants to serve, then there for sure Radharani emerges and appears in the heart of such a person, such a living entity. So now imagine if your base is Radharani, if the foundation of your service towards Srimati Radha, towards Sri Krishna is Srimati Radha Rani, then you see, you become eternal servant of Srimati Radha Rani. So whenever we want to cater to Sri Krishna, whenever we want to serve Sri Krishna out of love and affection, basically, you see, then you are in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Now consider, for example, that there is a pitcher or an earthen pot in your room, you see, in your home.
પટેલ બ્રધર માંથી અમે હમણાં જ લીધું માટલું, तो मटके का पानी पीना चाहिए। खैर, तो आपके घर पर मटके में जो पानी है, मटके में भी पानी है,
So now this earthen pot is filled
फिर आपके नल
full of your water.
आया नल से, नल में पानी कहां से आया? टंकी से।
Now you see
पानी
this
कहां से आया?
earthen
नदी
pot
से।
had the water from the
नदी में पानी
tap.
कहां से
The
आया?
tap adds
पर्वत
water
से।
from your
पर्वत
overhead
में
tank.
पानी कहां से आया?
Overhead tank had
बर्फ
this
से।
water sourced from river.
अच्छा, बर्फ
From river, you
से
see,
पानी
this
कहां
river
से आया?
got this
कि ये
water
ताप
from
से।
iceberg, and iceberg had this water
और
coming
सूरज के ताप से पानी
from,
कहां से आया? बादल से। और
you
बादल में
see,
पानी कहां से आया?
from clouds,
समुद्र से।
and cloud got
तो
this water from oceans and seas.
मटके से लेकर
So
पर्वत
ultimately, from
तक जितनी
earthen
भी
pot
वस्तुएं हैं,
till
जहां जहां
clouds,
पानी है,
wherever there is
ये चीज
water.
तो माननी होगी कि ये सारा पानी समुद्र का है।
So we must understand one thing, that
मटके
every
में पानी है, लेकिन वो
water at every stage ultimately
समुद्र का
belongs to
है।
the
क्योंकि
ocean,
समुद्र
to the
कहां से?
sea.
बादल में गया, बादल से पानी गिरा, पानी पर्वत पर, फिर नदी में, फिर नल में, और फिर मटके में।
Ultimately, the water
तो
belongs
मटके
to
में
the
जो पानी है
oceans.
वो समुद्र का ही जल है। नल में जो
So in
पानी
a
है
way,
वो
the
समुद्र
water
का
which
है।
is there in the
फिर नदी
earthen
में,
pot,
पर्वत
or
में,
water which is
बादल में
there
जो
in the
पानी
water
है वो
tap,
समुद्र का
or
है।
in the
ठीक
overhead
इसी
tank,
प्रकार
or in the
हमारे
river, or in the
हृदय
clouds,
में कृष्ण
actually
को प्रिय
belongs
भाव
to
से
sea
प्रसन्न
or
करने की जो
ocean.
भावना है
So you
वो
see,
राधा रानी की भावना
the
है।
mood or the desire in our
वो
heart to
राधा
serve
भाव
Shri
है।
Krishna
तो
basically is
कुछ हद तक
nothing but
राधा
Radha
रानी
Bhav,
आती
the
हमारे
mood
हृदय
of
में
Srimati
तो फिर
Radharani.
कृष्ण से
So
प्रिय भाव में
basically, it
सेवा
is
और
the
प्रसन्न
Haladini
रहने की भावना।
potency which comes to our heart
अब हमें
and
ये
which always
सोचना
has
है
a
कि कृष्ण
desire
को
to
प्रिय भाव से,
lovingly
प्रेम भाव
serve
से प्रसन्न
Lord
करने की
Krishna.
भावना है कि नहीं, पहले तो
Now,
ये सोचिए।
what we must first look at, do we have in
यदि
our
है
hearts the
तो
mood to
राधे मेरी
serve
सुहागनी,
Lord
मैं
Shri
राधे
Krishna
को
lovingly? And if that mood is there in our mind and heart, then for sure that
और
Srimati Radha Rani is our
यही
Guru,
है
is our
कि
Master,
गृहस्थी
and that we
मैया
all are
मैया
eternal
आ गए।
servants of
अब
Srimati
ऑफिस में
Radha
कोई
Rani.
योगी होता है ना,
You
कर्तव्य
see,
भाव से,
this
कभी
is
कभी ऑफिस हो, कभी कभी
actually
वर्कर
the
हो,
mood of
आप कहते हैं
serving
क्यों भाई नहीं
Sri
करे तो
Krishna
सेवा
out of
नहीं
love and
करेंगे।
affection and not by
इस
force
भाव
or
से जीना है
obligation
तो
towards the
जीवेर स्वरूप
duty.
भाई कृष्णेर नित्य दास।
So you see,
ये हमारे ऊपर है।
if you just have a routine
कितनी भी
desire of
ज्यादा
serving Krishna as a
प्रेम भाव
duty,
से
then you see this
कृष्ण
is
को
just a love.
प्रसन्न
This
करना
is
चाहे,
just a duty
कृष्ण से
towards
प्रेम
Sri
करना चाहे,
Krishna, and
तो
that you're
राधा
doing
को
it
भी उसकी
because you
स्वामिनी
consider yourself as eternal
दास।
servants of
इतना समझ
Sri
में आ गया?
Krishna. But that if you
और
want to
थोड़ा
serve
सा
Krishna out
ये
of
इसको,
love and
ये
affection,
दो
then
पदों को
that
थोड़ा
is
गहरा
where
करके
Radha
गहरा देखना,
mood, the
इसमें
mood of
स्वार्थ
Sri
की
Radha
भाव से
Rani
देखना।
comes into picture.
मैं
Yeah.
ऐसे ही नहीं चिल्ला रहा हूं रोज राधा माधव रोज प्रारंभ में, इसके पीछे कुछ दर्शन है, कुछ तत्व है। साधारण दृष्टि से देखेंगे तो समझ में नहीं आएगा। मुझे कई भक्तों ने मेरे साथ तर्क किए, वितर्क किए, बहुत बहुत इतिहास में बातें हुई हैं कि आपको ये नहीं गाना चाहिए, ये है वो है, लेकिन हम तो गाते ही रहते हैं क्योंकि हम इसके मर्म को थोड़ा बहुत समझते हैं। और फिर आगे क्या है? जन्म जन्म मोहे दीजियो।
So, what is the next line? Janam janam mohe dijiyo Shri Vrindavan Vas.
प्रवेश करने की टिकट जो है वो कृपा
The ticket to enter Vrindavan can only come from Shri Radharani's mercy. Without the mercy of Srimati Radharani, one can never enter into Brij. Because Krishna is no doubt Brijraj, the king of Brij.
स्त्रियों में बुद्धि नहीं, स्त्रियां अबला है, ये बोलने वाले ने स्त्रियों को पहचाना ही कहाँ है?
You see, sometimes some people say that the females are powerless, they are abla, or that they do not have intelligence. Such people themselves do not have actually mind. Now, for example, a husband you see is engaged in enterprise day in and day out like donkeys and ox. And then he gets married and brings the wife to the home. Now, if you ask the wife and you ask her whose house is it, you see, she would say that it belongs to her. Overnight, the house belongs to her. If the husband goes on to his in-law's place, he cannot even say that even a single chair belongs to him at his in-law's place. So Brijraj, no doubt, is Shri Krishna, but the Adhishtatri Devi, the queen established of Brij Vrindavan, is Srimati Radharani. Now we are all at the bank of Sri Godavari. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had asked, what should be the final destination of any living entity? Then Rai Ramanand had said that the final destination of every living entity must be to give up everything, to pack up everything and leave, and finally must go and stay in Sri Vrindavan, where there is eternal pastime of the Ras Leela of Shri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. So you see, this is the nature of living entity to stay in Brij Vrindavan. But how is it possible to get the stay and residence in Brij Vrindavan? It is possible only by mercy of Srimati Radharani. So you see, we all
और जन्म जन्म
Lord
मोहे
Shri Krishna, even if we are blessed with the tiny speck of your devotion towards Sri Lord Krishna, the life becomes meaningful. Now, supposedly, if Srimati Radharani would ask a question that if you want to stay in Vrindavan, then where would you want to stay? What form would you take up to stay in Vrindavan? Now, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati has very beautifully described this.
नित्यं परस्य पुरुषस्य शिखण्डमौली तस्या कदा रसनिधे वृषभानु जाया तत्केलिकुञ्ज भवना गणमार्जनी प्रबोधानंद सरस्वती कहते हैं,
Prabodhananda Saraswati ji says that
वास्तव चाहिए लेकिन कैसा? तो कहते हैं कभी कभी कृष्ण राधा रानी से मिलने का प्रयास करते हैं लेकिन ललिता सखी मिलने नहीं देती है।
now you see, Rai Ramanand says that Sri Krishna in Vrindavan wants to meet, has a desire to meet Srimati Radharani, but then Sri Lalita Sakhi never allows to do that. She controls both Krishna and Srimati Radharani. She never allows Sri Krishna to meet Radharani. Now I'll share a story
कृष्ण
with
को राधा
you.
रानी से मिलना था और फिर रास्ते में चंद्रावली आदि सखी मिल गई, मिलने में देरी हो गई, पहुंचने में देरी हो गई।
So once Sri Krishna was on the way to meet Srimati Radharani, but then on way he met Chandravali Sakhi and he got delayed to meet Srimati Radharani. Now when Sri Krishna arrived, Lalita Sakhi questioned Sri Krishna that it's too late that you have arrived.
समझ में आए।
Why has Sri Krishna done so late?
आप जानते हैं कि इंतजार की घड़ी कितनी
Lalita
कठिन
Sakhi questioned Sri Krishna that Krishna, you do not even know that it is wrong to make a person wait.
आपको मिलने नहीं मिलेगा।
You see, I will not allow you to meet Srimati Radharani. You do not know and you do not respect that somebody is waiting for you. Sri Krishna pleads very deeply to Lalita Sakhi that she must allow him to meet Sri Radharani. But Lalita Sakhi doesn't allow. And in a very sad mood,
अब हमने श्रावण
Sri
अष्टमी के दिन
Krishna,
क्या गाया?
came at the banks of Yamuna Maya and he started weeping and crying.
सिंधु सुख राशि आनंद का समुद्र आज रो रहा है, कारण राधा से मिलने नहीं मिला, राधा का सानिध्य संग नहीं मिला।
And why is Sri Krishna crying? Because he could not get company of Srimati Radharani. Now, some of the friends of Sri Krishna, some of the Gopas of Sri Krishna passed by and they noticed Lord Krishna in trouble and in problem and in a sad mood. Now, one of the Sakhas, one of the friends of Sri Krishna was Madhumangal Sakha, who used to crack jokes with Lord Krishna. He told Sri Krishna that how is it possible that you being a leader is sad? If you will stay sad, then what would happen to us? Lord Krishna lamented that Lalita Sakhi is not allowing Krishna to meet Radharani. Madhumangal said, that don't you worry, I will make you meet Srimati Radharani. I am the son of a Brahmin, and if I am determined, I can do anything that I want. Now Sri Krishna asked, what do I do? Madhumangal said, go and get some lime. Now you see, Krishna is all powerful and he presented chuna, that is lime. Now he asked then Sri Krishna to apply that lime in the hair locks of Sri Krishna. So the black locks of Sri Krishna became white. And now remove your gowns and wear the robes of sadhu or a saint. And now start chanting some of the mantras behind me. So Madhumangalji transformed Lord Krishna like into an astrologer and got the news spread across Braj that there is an astrologer in Braj Vrindavan. He has such huge powers that whatever he would say turns true. You see, whenever it comes to astrology, you see Matajis who are very tender at heart, you see they become so sensitive and active and that they start flocking around the astrologer to consult. Now when the news you see spread in Brij Vrindavan that there is a very highly qualified astrologer who has come in Brij Vrindavan, so Lalita Sakhi also got to know the news and Lalita ji said that at least we must show the hand and palm of Sri Radharani to the astrologer, and she asked that astrologer be brought to them. Now Krishna and Madhumangal were waiting for this particular thing to happen. So now Sri Krishna in the form of astrologer and Madhumangal reached Lalita Sakhi. Lalita Sakhi showed her palm to Sri Krishna and asked that how do I know that you're a real astrologer? Sri Krishna in the form of astrologer said that today in the evening around 5 o'clock you rebuked some male. Now Lalita Sakhi wondered that, oh, he is certainly a very qualified astrologer. You see, so now Lalita Sakhi thought that certainly he's a qualified astrologer, and then she requested the astrologer that would you be able to make some predictions to my friend Radharani? To which astrologer Krishna said that yes, I can, but for that I have to see her palm. Now Lalita Sakhi brought Shri Krishna, who is in the form of an astrologer, and Lalita Sakhi went out of the Nikunj, and now Shri Krishna takes the palm of Srimati Radharani into his hand, and the hands of Shri Krishna started trembling. After some time, the astrologer, after some time, when Lalita Sakhi entered the room, she asked, "Oh, astrologer, what are you doing? Why are your hands trembling?" Sri Krishna, in the form of astrologer, said that because I'm an old man, that's why my hands are trembling. See, his hands were trembling not because of nervousness or being old, but because of his love of Sri Krishna, Sri Radharani. Now, when Lalita Sakhi went out, Srimati Radharani got to realize that it is not an astrologer but Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna pampers Srimati Radharani throughout the night, but Radharani does not agree. Prabodhanand Saraswati said that this went on for entire night. Sri Krishna made every attempt by beautiful words to pamper Srimati Radharani, and because of the entire stay of Sri Krishna for the full night, you see, there was some disorder at Nikunj. Now, some of the friends of Sri Lalita Sakhi and Srimati Radharani enters Nikunj to clean up the Nikunj.
मैं ब्रज वृंदावन में किसी सखी के हाथ का या मेरे गुरुदेव भगवान किसी मंजरी किसी किंकरी के हाथ का झाड़ू कब बनूंगा, कब मुझे ब्रज वृंदावन में इस निकुंज को साफ करने का झाड़ू बनने का सौभाग्य मिलेगा.
Prabodhanand Saraswati says, when would I get the privilege to be the broom in the hands of a Sakhi who cleans the room where the ras, where the pastimes of Srimati Radharani and Krishna goes for the entire night. So if one gets the opportunity to be the broom in the hands of a Sakhi or a Gopi, it is the greatest privilege. Then what do we think? That Radha tu barbagini kaun tapasya keen? Because you see, the master of all the three worlds is at your command. What penance and meditation have you done that you have got such a fortune that the master of, the owner of, the king of all the three worlds is always available at your command?
राधे राधे, तूने ऐसी कौन सी तपस्या की है आपकी जानकारी के लिए?
O Radharani, what meditation penance have you undergone that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always ready to serve you at your wish? Your wish becomes command. You see, please understand this right from the very beginning, right from the very appearance. Shri Krishna is always at the service of Radharani because the eternal element of Srimati Radharani is to love Shri Krishna. Srimati Radharani is always in complete surrender mode to Shri Krishna, and she is always ready to do anything for Shri Krishna. Now you see, if we have to accept the fact that Radharani has certainly did certain meditation and penance, if we have to accept that we have to do some meditation and penance for Sri Krishna, then understand it that in order to serve someone, in order to be at service of somebody, you have to undergo certain struggle and pain.
भिखारी यदि मान की आशा रखे,
In Ramayan, Bharatji has also said that if a beggar is desirous of respect, can he ever get that? A person who is filled with carnal pleasures and desires, can he ever get liberation? No. If somebody who's engaged in all wrongdoings can never get liberation, because if similarly, if you see, if a master or a slave, can he ever desire himself to be having all facilities and amenities and be master? The answer is no.
श्रीमती राधा रानी यदि तपस्या शब्द लिया जाए तो कृष्ण से इतना प्रेम और
So if you talk about Srimati Radharani, the Srimati Radharani always surrenders whatever she has towards Lord Krishna. So that is how it goes. Radha, tu बड़भागिनी, कौन तपस्या कीन, तीनों लोक के नाथ हैं, सौ तेरो आधीन. Now some people have arguments that it should be Rukmani ji and not Radharani along with Sri Krishna. So basically, those people who raise such questions, basically they have no standard of understanding at all. Dear devotees, in Shastras, it is mentioned that Radha and Krishna are no different. They are single element, they are just one. It is only to establish love and attachment that they took the two forms. Otherwise, they're all one. It is only to experience love and pleasure that they have taken two forms.
कृष्ण के साथ राधा नहीं होनी चाहिए, तू यहाँ नहीं होना चाहिए.
And if some people object to Radharani for Sri Krishna, then I would say that that person, such a person, should not be there in the Katha. Kaviraj Goswami goes on to say,
Krishna पूर्ण शक्तिमान दुई वस्तु भेद नाही शास्त्रेर प्रमाण.
So Kaviraj Goswami says that
कविराज गोस्वामी कहते हैं कि राधा पूर्ण शक्ति, कृष्ण पूर्ण शक्तिमान है.
So Kaviraj Goswami goes on to say that if Krishna is all powerful, then Srimati Radharani is that power. So if you remove power from powerful, you see what will be left? Nothing. That's why it is said that Krishna is just nothing without Radharani. There is no difference between Radha and Krishna. There are numerous evidences in Shastras. Can you separate the waves of the ocean from the ocean? Can you separate the waves from the ocean? Can you separate the fragrance from the flower? Can someone separate heat from fire? No, it's absolutely impossible. So if Krishna is the ocean, Radharani is the wave. If Krishna is the flower, Radharani is the fragrance. If Krishna is fire, then Radharani is the heat. They're not separate, they're just one. It is only to take the pleasure of happiness, experience pleasure, that they have taken these two forms. If I talk about evidence from Shastras, Chaitanya Charitamrut goes on to mention something like this. And this is there on your screens before you. राधा कृष्ण एक आत्मा
दुई देह धरी अन्योन्ये विलसे रस आस्वादन करी। राधा कृष्ण एक आत्मा। खैर राधा में आत्मा जैसा तो कुछ होता नहीं। अब देखिए एक एक
Now you
परेशानी
see, Radha and Krishna is just one.
के विषय में बोल रहा हूं, कुछ तत्वों को समझाने बैठा हूं, लेकिन ये सब इम्पॉसिबल है। क्यों? क्योंकि राधा रानी महाभाव स्वरूपा है। क्या है?
Radha Rani is actually the grand mood, grand affection.
महाभाव ही राधा है।
So this grand affection, grand mood is Radha Rani herself.
शब्द में कैसे उतारा जा
How
सकता
is it possible to put the mood in words, affection in words?
एक विनम्र प्रयास है कि भाई
So I am just making an humble attempt to make you understand this feel, emotion, affection.
वाणी की पहुंच है।
You see, words or speech is just impossible to reach that level. So for the understanding, normal understanding of human mind, it is said that Radha Krishna is just one soul, because ultimately we have to understand that she is Mahabhav personified, grand mood personified. Otherwise, you see, it's absolutely impossible to understand the element of Srimati Radha Rani. So, this line, Radha Krishna is one soul, is just a mood which is being expressed. So, Radha Rani and Sri Krishna is just one soul, and they have taken two forms or two bodies. Now, the question could be that why have they taken two forms? The answer is in order to give happiness and experience pleasure and love with each other. So, to experience love, to experience Madhurya, mellow, they have taken the two forms.
इसे और मैं यदि आपको समझाने का प्रयास करूं तो भगवान श्री कृष्ण की अनंत शक्ति है।
So you see, there are numerous potencies of Shri Krishna, and amongst the numerous potencies of Shri Krishna, the three major potencies are Antaranga, Bahiranga, and Tathastha potency. So there is a proper sequence also to the three. So the first one, the second one, and the third one, that is also fixed. The first one, the first potency is Bahiranga potency. This is the illusory power or Maya. So this is the third potency of Shri Krishna, or the third category of potency.
बहिरंगा शक्ति माया भगवान की तीसरी शक्ति है।
Is the third potency of Shri Krishna. And what does it do? So Bahiranga Maya potency is always engaged in, it goes on to create attachment of the living entity amongst persons and things and objects. What else does it do? By the Sat, Rajas and Tamas qualities, it goes on to create the material world. And then it binds the entity, living entity, with the material world. So this is Bahiranga potency. The second category or the second sequence of potency of Shri Krishna is Tathastha. Tathastha potency is we people, the living entity. We are also a kind of potency of Lord Krishna, just like Shri Krishna, just like Srimati Radharani is the complete full potency of Shri Krishna. Similarly, we all, the living entities, are also Tathastha potency of Shri Krishna. So now the question is, why are the living entities like you and me called as Tathastha potency of Shri Krishna? Number one reason is because we living entities came to be produced on the coast, neither in the spiritual world nor in the full material world. So at the confluence of the material world and the spiritual world, that we living entities got created, and hence we are called as the thirst potency. And also the second important point that you must understand here is the place where Lord remains intact without changing, solidly, for sure, very strongly. So we do have Lord in our hearts, but it is the thirst. He has given us entire freedom. So it is not that Lord Krishna, Lord, if He stays in our heart, He will never allow us anything wrong to be performed by it. Rather, it depends upon us because Lord has given us full freedom, because this neutrality of the Lord, in which in that form, Lord stays in our heart, but Lord does not intervene. So it is up to us whether we want to do the right thing or the wrong things. Now the question could be why Lord stays intact, or that why Lord remains neutral, or how is it to be believed that Lord stays neutral? For example, terrorists are exploding bombs because Lord is neutral. And you see, Lord remains neutral and does not intervene because Lord wants the living entity to remain free and must engage in the devotion towards Lord. And if the Lord would not stay neutral, then there would be a kind of element of force which can be said to have been introduced by Lord towards the living entity to engage in worship. So Bahiranga potency, the thirst potency, and the first category of potency of the Lord is Sarvopari potency or Sarup potency. This potency is also called as Antarang potency. So it is Antarang potency or also Sarup Shakti, Sarup potency. This Antarang potency or Sarup, potency
राधे तेरे चरणों की धूल मिल जाए, केवल गाने से ज्यादा समझ में नहीं आएगी. इतना कुछ समझने के बाद भी मैं पहले ही कह चुका हूं कि राधा रानी महाभाव स्वरूपा है. वहां न वाणी की पहुंच है, न मन की पहुंच, न बुद्धि की पहुंच है. हम केवल नजदीक जाने का प्रयास भर कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमें उनको आश्रित होकर भजन करना है.
You see, it is absolutely tough to understand the element of Srimati Radharani. We can only make an humble attempt. So, the three major potencies of Antarang Shakti of Lord Shri Krishna, three are the major ones. Sandhini potency, and the Sandhini potency work or job is, so Sandhini potency has the major task to illustrate or exhibit the Dham. So Vaikuntha Dham has been built by whom? The Sandhini potency of Shri Krishna. Who created Saket Dham? The Sandhini potency of the Lord. Who created Golok Dham? Sandhini potency.
वैकुंठ का प्रतीक बद्रीनाथ धाम है, साकेत का प्रतीक अयोध्या और चित्रकूट आदि धाम जो हम संसार में देखते हैं. तो संधिनी शक्ति धाम का निर्माण करती है.
So the Sandhini potency goes on to create the Dham. Now the next potency is Samvit potency. The Samvit potency is within Lord, and this potency continues to maintain the knowledge and intelligence of the Lord, and the grandeur of Sri Krishna's knowledge that he has is only because of Samvit potency. So the grandeur of Sri Krishna is maintained by Samvit potency. And now the potency on which we are required to elaborate, and that is Antaranga Sarup Shakti, in which the first one is Haladini potency. This Haladini potency, it is the highest placed potency of all the potencies of Lord Krishna. Haladini potency. Haladini potency means the potency which gives pleasure to Shri Krishna. So this Haladini potency, which has the major task and assignment of making Shri Krishna happy, has taken the form of Srimati Radharani, whose only task is to give pleasure, happiness to Lord Krishna. So Haladini potency is the culminating point of happiness. And that Haladini potency is none other than Srimati Radharani. So even though Srimati Radharani is the potency and power of Shri Krishna, so element wise both are same. But because this potency is produced from Shri Krishna, but still Srimati Radharani is considered greater than that of Shri Krishna. Now you must be wondering, how is it so possible that somebody which has emerged and emanated from Shri Krishna, how come it be greater than Krishna? How can it be greater than Krishna? Now, for example, try to understand this. So you see, we cultivate sugarcane in the fields, right? From sugarcane, you see, good or jaggery is made. Furthermore, from jaggery, you see, sugar is made or mishri is made. Now, this mishri or sugar is actually the form of sugarcane, but you see, the sweetness that you would experience in the juice of sugarcane will not be as sweet as the mishri or sugarcane. So you see, even though the form is of sugarcane, but the form has changed, the kind of happiness you would get while
अधिक महिमा, कृष्ण से भी अधिक महिमा श्रीमती राधा रानी की है। गत वर्ष
and Sri Krishna is the glory of Srimati Radha Rani. Last year, in the last year's Katha, we have talked a lot about Srimati Radharani, and I'm not looking forward to repeat those points. But for sure, I have to say something that there are many reasons behind incarnation of the Lord. So you see, we have heard this in Bhagvat Gita, in Bhagvatam also there are different reasons. So there are numerous reasons, numerous set of reasons for incarnation of Sri Krishna. But there is just one reason for the incarnation of Sri Krishna as Srimati Radharani. And what is that one reason, single reason? So Radharani has appeared only with one objective, one reason. And what is that? That reason is there on the screens before you.
गोविंदा मनमोहिनी गोविंद सर्वस्व सर्वकांता शिरोमणि सर्वकांता शिरोमणि। राधा जन्म के, राधा प्राकट्य के, राधा अवतार का एक ही कारण है।
The only reason for the appearance of Srimati Radharani is just one. And what is it? To offer pleasure to Sri Krishna. The only reason for the appearance of Srimati Radharani is to offer pleasure and happiness to Sri Krishna. To give pleasure to Sri Krishna and nothing other than that. And because she is able to give pleasure to Sri Krishna, she is called as Govind Mohini. She is able to entice Govind. And because of this, Radharani herself becomes everything to Sri Krishna. Now, Radharani appears to give happiness to Sri Krishna, and because you see that she feels that she is not capable to give happiness and pleasure to Shri Krishna, then she produces from herself other Sakhis and Gopis to engage in the service of Krishna to make Krishna happy. So that way, try to understand that Srimati Radharani is everything to Shri Krishna. If Shri Krishna is the Tijori or the locker, then the money or the treasure placed in that Tijori is Srimati Radharani. Now, if I ask you what is more important, is it the Tijori box or the treasure in the Tijori box which is more important? So Krishna is just like the locker box, and Radharani is the jewelry in that locker box.
हमारो धन राधा श्री राधा श्री राधा श्याम धन राधा 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 कृष्ण धन राधा 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 हमारो धन राधा श्री राधा श्री राधा. सो कृष्ण का धन राधा है.
So the treasure of Sri Krishna is Radha, and our treasure is Krishna. So the treasure of the treasure is Srimati Radha Rani. So Radharani is Maha Bhav Swarupa.
राधा जन्म के विषय में हमें कुछ समझने का प्रयास करना है. अतः
So this is the occasion of Sri Radha Ashtami going on. So first of all, let us try to understand the appearance of Srimati Radharani in the Golok Vrindavan from Brahmavaivarta Puran. In the 5th chapter, Vedvyas Muniji very interestingly mentions this. So Brahmavaivarta Puran talks about the appearance of Srimati Radharani in Golok Vrindavan, and we shall attempt to understand this by 4 or 5 shlokas. So Lord Krishna has gone on to create Golok Vrindavan, and he started going around Golok Vrindavan. But staying in Golok Vrindavan, he realized that there is something which is missing.
यदि कोई क्लासरूम है, वहां पर टीचर है, क्लासरूम में पढ़ाने वाली टीचर है, लेकिन स्टूडेंट ही नहीं है, तो टीचर का क्या मतलब? कितना भी बड़ा डॉक्टर हो, लेकिन पेशेंट ही ना हो तो
Somewhat may highly qualified you are a doctor, but that if you do not have a patient, then the doctor has no significance. Come what may, highly established the king may be, but if he doesn't have his subjects, then the king has no significance. So Krishna realized it, that I am the Lord, I am the God, I am the God to everyone. But then there is nobody to love me grandiosely, in a very grand manner. So I am of no importance or significance. There's nobody to love me. Now that is Golok Vrindavan, which is like, uh, is like wish come true types. So it is Lord who is having the desire, and the desire led to illumination emanating from Lord Krishna, and from that illumination coming out from the heart of Sri Krishna, and it is from this light that Srimati Radharani emerged. Sri Siddh Goswami in Vaivarta Puran goes on to write, and it is there on the shloka, in the shloka before you on your screens. So Sri Srup Goswami went on to say,
धावयित्वा पुष्पमानीय ददाव पूज्य प्रभो पदे. भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने जब इस प्रकार से सोचा,
so as Lord Krishna had this desire that there should be somebody there is something which is missing. Srimati Radharani appeared. So when Radharani appeared, her age was 14 years and 2 months. You see, many acharyas and commentators have written a lot about Srimati Radharani. So some believe that Radharani is 2 months elder to Srimati Radharani. But our Gaudiya Mat acharyas have rejected this, that Srimati Radharani is elder to Sri Krishna. So in Gaudiya Parampara, we believe that ideally the women should be younger to the male. 15 years, 9 months, and 7 days is the age of Sri Krishna, and Srimati Radharani's age being 14 years, 2 months. Radharani appeared with the flower in her hand. It's a very beautiful flower she had when she appeared. If you see the shloka,
आप श्लोक में देखिए कि आविर्बभूव कन्ये का, एक कन्या आविर्भूत हुई.
So a girl emerged.
धावयित्वा पुष्पमानीय, वो जैसे ही आविर्भूत हुई तो धावयित्वा दौड़ने लगी.
So as she appeared, she started running. She had lotus flower in her hand, and she started running. And she offered that lotus flower at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And where Lord Sri Krishna was sitting, she went on to sit beside Sri Krishna, running her hand around the neck of Sri Krishna. You see, this was the desire of Sri Krishna, isn't it? That there should be somebody
कि रास मंडल में राधा रानी का प्राकट्य हुआ. इसलिए आप अगले श्लोक में देख सकते हैं, रासे संभूय गोलोके. गोलोक में रास मंडल में, रास मंडप में इनका प्राकट्य हुआ और प्रकट होकर सा दधाव हरे पुरह, हरि के पास, हरि के निकट दधाव दौड़ने लगी. धावयित्वा.
So Srimati Radharani started running towards Hari.
और धावयित्वा दौड़ने लगी, इसलिए धा, रा धा, इनका नामकरण हुआ. जब इनका प्राकट्य हुआ
So when she appeared,
नाम देवताओं ने रखा राधा.
the demigods called her Radha,
कृष्ण की आराधना करने में,
because
कृष्ण की सेवा
in worshipping towards Sri Krishna, she was very, very active.
फिर तो
And then,
लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पर जहां पर हार्ट होता है,
so on the left hand side of Sri Krishna, where is the heart, she went on to sit. And then
कृष्ण की प्राणों की अधिष्ठात्री बन गई.
she went on to become the queen of the life of Sri Krishna.
देवता होते ना,
So you see, all the directions have their own demigod. Like for ocean, it is Varun. For rain, it is Indradev. Similarly, the Adhishtatri Devi of Sri Krishna's heart is Srimati Radharani.
अधिष्ठात्री, प्राणों की अधिष्ठात्री देवी. और आविर्बभूव प्रणम्य प्रणेभ्यो गरीयसी. यद्यपि कृष्ण के प्राणों से प्रकट हुई है, लेकिन
Though she emanates from the life of Sri Krishna,
के प्राणों से भी वो बढ़कर हो गई.
but because of her deep loving affection towards Sri Krishna, she went on to acquire greater status than Sri Krishna.
राधा रानी ने देखा कि कृष्ण को आनंद देना है, और
Then Radharani realized that I have to give pleasure to Sri Krishna and that I am not that competent to offer pleasure to Sri Krishna. And hence,
उल्लास नहीं होगा. लीला सहाय लागी बहुत प्रकाश.
so Radharani realized that I would not be suffice to contribute to the pastime of Sri Krishna. So from the pores of the body hair, Ashtasakhis emerged, and from every Ashtasakhi, further 8 Sakhis came to be produced. So in this manner, gopis and sakhis came to be produced. In Brahma Vaivarta Puran, it is said that in this manner, 1 lakh gopis emerged. So 1 lakh crore gopis emerged, and that a beautiful pastime started to happen in Brij Vrindavan. So when Radharani produced gopis, so Lord Krishna went on to produce from his body hair the sakhas, and then Shri Krishna also went on to produce beautiful cows and calves from his bodily hair, and that is how Golok Dham went on to become full from the associates of the Lord, and the eternal pastime of Shri Krishna started taking place. So, in order to give pleasure to Shri Krishna, Radharani has emerged, you see, in Golok Vrindavan. Now, how Radharani comes from Vrij Vrindavan, Golok Vrindavan, upon the earth in Barsana. So we will talk about all this tomorrow, and we will also celebrate Abhishekam of Srimati Radharani. So let us now go back to Rai Ramanan and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who are sitting at the bank of River Godavari. And now let us try to hear the conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramanan. So, but before that, let's take a short break.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद श्रीमान लाल गोविंद जी का। बहुत ही सुंदर श्री राधा तत्व का यहाँ पर वर्णन चल रहा है इस भागवत कथा के अंतर्गत, और बड़े ही भाग्यशाली है कि हम सबको यहाँ पर लगातार 2 दिन तक इस श्रीमती राधा रानी के जन्म उत्सव की कथा को आस्वादन करने का अवसर मिल रहा है। और बहुत सुंदर वर्णन किया प्रभु जी ने कि किस प्रकार श्रीमती राधा रानी है, जिस व्यक्ति के अंदर ये जो सेवा भावना की कृष्ण को प्रसन्न करने की इच्छा रहती है, जिसकी चाह रहती है, तो राधा रानी रिमेन्स रिसाइड्स इन द हार्ट ऑफ दैट डिवोटी। सो बहुत ही बढ़िया सेंटेंस, एक स्टेटमेंट समझने को मिला। ये जो वृत्ति है हलादिनी, वो ऐसे व्यक्ति के हृदय में रहती है जिनको भगवान को प्रसन्न करने की इच्छा होती है, या तत्सुख सुखित्वम की भावना जिसके हृदय में रहती है ना, उनके हृदय में श्रीमती राधा रानी का निवास रहता है। और बहुत ही सुंदर राधा रानी के अवतरण की कथा यहाँ पर प्रभु जी वर्णन कर रहे हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं प्रभु जी का। और आइए हम दर्शन करते हैं श्री राधा गोविंद गौशाला की गौ मैया के, और पश्चात हम शेष कथा को श्रवण करेंगे पुनः प्रभु जी के मुखारविंद से। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। तो पुनः एक बार फिर से श्री राधा गोविंद गौशाला में हमारे गौ माता के दर्शन करने हैं हम यहाँ पर, और पुनः हमारे ये जो यजमान परिवार है जिन्होंने ये सहयोग किया है, जिसके फलस्वरूप हम बार बार यहाँ पर गौ माता के दर्शन को प्राप्त कर पा रहे हैं और ऐसी सुंदर कथा को आस्वादन कर पा रहे हैं। तो कि प्रभु और ये हमारे समस्त मकवाना परिवार जिन्होंने यह सहयोग किया है, उसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं उनको। और विशेष हम प्रार्थना करना चाहेंगे हमारे कुसुमबेन प्रवीण चंद्र वाजा माता जी, जो कि हमारे मकवाना परिवार यानी अंकुर प्रभु, उनकी मदर इन लॉ हु जस्ट लेफ्ट फ्यू मंथ्स बैक, उनके लिए हमारी इस गौ मैया से प्रार्थना करेंगे कि उन्हें अपने चरणों में वास दे और भगवान की सेवा में, लीला भक्ति में बनाए रखे, ऐसी प्रार्थना करते हैं। तो कुसुमबेन माता जी के लिए हम प्रार्थना करेंगे। आप सभी भक्तों से निवेदन है कि हम वास्तव में ऋणी हैं इन परिवार के, जिन्होंने यह सुंदर सहयोग किया, जिसके फलस्वरूप हमें इतनी अद्भुत कथा श्रवण करने को मिली। तो हमारा परम कर्तव्य बनता है इस परिवार के लिए और उनके अपने जो स्नेही जन है जिन्होंने कुछ समय पूर्व अपने देह को त्याग किया, उनके लिए प्रार्थना करें ताकि वह भी परम चरम गति को प्राप्त कर सके। तो आप सबसे निवेदन है कि आप सब भी अपने प्रेयर के बीच में हमारे कुसुम माता को जरूर ध्यान देना। और बहुत ही सुंदर हमारे श्री राधा गोविंद गौशाला की ये जो ग्राफ है उनके दर्शन करने को मिले, उसके लिए हम धन्यवाद करते हैं। तो आप सबसे निवेदन है कि आप सब भी इस प्रकार सहयोग कर सकते हैं इस श्री राधा गोविंद गौशाला में, जहाँ पर हम उन गायों की सेवा करते हैं जो कि अबैंडन है, स्ट्रे है ना, और भटकती हुई गाय है जो प्लास्टिक खाती है, उनको यहाँ पर हमने एक शेल्टर दे के रखी है और उन्हीं की सेवा करने का हमारा प्रण है आजीवन। तो इसमें आप सबका सहयोग अनिवार्य है, इसलिए आप सबसे निवेदन है कि आप अपना सहयोग बनाए रखेगा। और इस विषय में अधिक यानी सहयोग करने की यदि आपकी इच्छा है, कामना है, तो यहाँ पर हमारा कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर है जहाँ पर आप हमें अप्रोच कर सकते हैं और सेवा के लिए आप सहयोग कर सकते हैं। सो 7567545555 यहाँ पर आप अप्रोच कर सकते हैं इस विषय में अधिक जानकारी के लिए, तथा sevaperfect@gmail.com पर ईमेल के द्वारा भी आप हमें अप्रोच कर सकते हैं। और इस गौशाला की गतिविधियों के विषय में आपको जानकारी प्राप्त करनी है तो आप हमारी वेबसाइट पर जा सकते हैं which is perfectseva.com। तो आप सबसे निवेदन है कि आप जरूर इसमें सहयोग कीजिएगा। और बहुत ही सुंदर जैसे प्रभु जी ने बताया कि हम राधाष्टमी पर्व सेलिब्रेट करने वाले हैं कल, तो पुनः आप सबके बीच में जैसे हमने 15 दिन पहले भगवान श्री कृष्ण का दिव्य अभिषेक महोत्सव सेलिब्रेट किया था हरिद्वार क्षेत्र में बैठकर, हरिद्वार धाम में बैठकर, तो पुनः हमें अवसर मिला है कि हम यहाँ पर श्रीमती राधा रानी की जो जन्मदिन है, जन्म उत्सव है, हम उसको सेलिब्रेट करने वाले हैं। तो ऐसी प्रकार से धूमधाम से भक्तों के बीच में यहाँ पर महाअभिषेक को होने वाला है यानी कि कल। तो आप सब इसमें जरूर उपस्थित रहिएगा। साथ ही साथ जैसे हम प्रभु जी के मुखारविंद से ये अमृतमय वाणी को आस्वादन कर रहे हैं, पुनः हम आस्वादन करेंगे और अभिषेक सेवा इस विषय में आप अधिक जानकारी ले सकते हैं। साथ ही साथ हम श्रीमती राधा रानी को भोगार्पण करेंगे यहाँ पर और महासंकीर्तन करेंगे सब साथ में मिलकर, क्योंकि ये संकीर्तन ही है जिससे कि भगवान को प्रसन्न किया जा सकता है। तो विशेष आप सबसे निवेदन अनुरोध है कि आप इस महाअभिषेक सेवा में जरूर सहयोग कीजिएगा, महाअभिषेक सेवा में जरूर सहयोग आपको प्राप्त कीजिएगा। और इस विषय में आप जानकारी प्राप्त कर सकते हैं हमारे नंबर पर अप्रोच करके, जो कि है 7567545555। यहाँ पर आप इस विषय में जानकारी प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। साथ ही साथ +12012150913 एक और नंबर है जहाँ पर आप अप्रोच कर सकते हैं। सो प्लीज डोंट मिस दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी। श्रीमती राधा रानी जो कि जिसे हम माता कहते हैं, वेरी काइंड हार्टेड श्रीमती राधा रानी, उनका जन्म उत्सव है, जन्मदिन है। तो just as sometimes we see that father is sometimes rude but mother is always soft hearted, very kind hearted. So here we have a wonderful opportunity to please Srimati Radharani so that we can please Krishna. So the only medium we have to approach Krishna is to approach Srimati Radharani. तो ये सुंदर अवसर है, आप सबसे निवेदन है इसमें जरूर पार्टिसिपेट कीजिएगा और इस अभिषेक सेवा में विशेष। साथ ही साथ भागवत कथा तो हम श्रवण कर ही रहे हैं और इसी के साथ एक बहुत ही सुंदर पर्व आ रहा है जो कि है पितृपक्ष, श्राद्ध पक्ष। इसमें भी आप से निवेदन करें कि आप इसमें सहयोग कर सकते हैं, हमारे पितृ स्वजनों के लिए सेवा कर सकते हैं, जो कि आने वाली 20 सितंबर से शुरू होने वाला है। तो आप सबसे निवेदन है कि आप उस विषय में भी यहाँ पर जानकारी है तो कुछ इस प्रकार से है। तो यस, which is starting from 20th September to till 6th October, ये 15 दिन तक पितृपक्ष है, जिस समय पे हम श्रीमान लाल गोविंद जी के मुखारविंद से पुनः भागवत कथा का आस्वादन तो करने ही वाले हैं, परंतु साथ साथ ये सुंदर अवसर है हमारे पास में जहाँ पर हम हमारे पितरों की तृप्ति के लिए बहुत सुंदर व्यवस्था की है गौशाला में, जहाँ पर वैष्णव को भोजन प्रदान करेंगे तथा भागवत पाठ करेंगे निरंतर 15 दिन तक हमारे पितरों के लिए। साथ ही साथ पितृमोक्ष के लिए पूजा भी हम करेंगे और यज्ञ अंतिम दिन में होएगा और साथ ही साथ गौ सेवा प्रतिदिन। तो ये सारे कार्य गौशाला में बहुत सुंदर आयोजन किया है हमारे भक्तों ने, जहाँ पर आप हमारे अपने पितरों के लिए यहाँ पर इस सेवा में श्राद्ध के लिए आप अप्रोच कर सकते हैं। So once again, the only number you can approach is through 756-754-5555. So we request you to kindly be part of this too. And let us now hear the glories of Srimati Radharani from Sriman LalGovindDas. Hare Krishna.
प्रभु कहे पढ़ श्लोक शास्त्रेर निर्णय प्रभु कहे पढ़ श्लोक साध्येर निर्णय राय कहे स्वधर्माचरणे विष्णु भक्ति हय राय कहे स्वधर्माचरणे विष्णु भक्ति हय। श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु Rai Raman.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Rai Ramanand, O Ramananda, amongst all the different ways, amongst all the different achievements, amongst all the worth achievable things, what is the utmost object? So Rai Ramanand goes on to answer this. In this world,
मात्र के लिए सबसे बड़ा साध्य, सबसे बड़ी उपलब्धि, सबसे बड़ी वस्तु यदि कोई है तो वो है विष्णु भक्ति। और उस विष्णु भक्ति जो साध्य
and in that Vishnu and in attempt of Vishnu's devotion, the only possible way is Swadharma Acharan, means the conduct of an individual by way of Dharma, as sanctioned by Dharma. Try to understand this. In the life of a living entity, why is bhakti or devotion is considered as the biggest worthy thing, the biggest goal to be established? See, there are two reasons. We or our people, our objects, our country, our world, everything has been created by the Lord. And because everything has been created by the Lord, and because it has been created by the Lord, it becomes a bounden duty that we must engage in devotion towards that Lord. And the second reason is the basic nature of each one of us as living entity is to do love, is to engage in affection, is to serve and offer services. So a living entity can forget everything but accept love, affection, and service attitude. Now, love, affection, and service attitude can only come to any living entity by way of God. And this is actually called as devotion. You see, other than devotion, you see, come in what enterprise that you might put, you will never get any happiness which would be comparable to the happiness that you would experience when you engage in devotion. So, to do bhakti, to engage in bhakti, to practice bhakti is the ultimate goal of any living entity. Now, who should be worshipped? The devotion should be directed to whom? So, Rai Ramanand says very clearly that devotion towards whom? For whom? So, Rai Ramanand says the devotion towards Vishnu, because it is the element of Vishnu alone which can be served, who can be loved. Shrimad Bhagvat Puran is the evidence to it. Shrimad Bhagvat Puran says, in Shrimad Bhagvat Puran, it is said that
विष्णु तत्व का ही भजन और प्रेम।
that
और एक पॉइंट आपकी जानकारी के लिए,
one point I want to mention for your information, that if we talk about Shrimad Bhagavatam, Narad Panchratrak Adi, if you consider other texts, if you consider these Shastras, the term devotion, the term bhakti,
मात्र विष्णु तत्व के लिए ही इस्तेमाल हुआ।
so this term devotion is only used for element of Vishnu, for Lord Vishnu. For demigods, you see, they can only be worshipped, they can only be prayed, but devotion can only be done of Vishnu element. If somebody says that he or she engages in devotion towards a particular demigod, then this is absolutely baseless and senseless, because Shastras never prescribe that. Shastras prescribe, Shastras go on to advise that the term devotion is strictly limited to whom? For Lord Vishnu. So you can get into praying Lord Brahma, or that you can engage in worshipping Lord Brahma, but you cannot engage in devotion towards Lord Brahma. So you can only engage for devotion towards Lord Vishnu. So devotion means love, and who is worthy of being loved? It is only Vishnu. So instead of getting too much into details, Rai Ramanand directly said, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked that what is the biggest goal of any living entity, Rai Ramanand directly said that the biggest goal of any living entity is devotion to Vishnu. See, the devotion towards Vishnu must be to beget love of Vishnu. Bhagvat Priti, love of Bhagvat. If we do engage in devotion towards Vishnu, but if we do it only for our own selfish interest, our vested interests, so that will not be considered as service towards the ultimate goal. And if you will engage in devotion towards Vishnu for other vested interests, for sure, your interest will be served, but you will never get the love of Lord. And what is the goal of living entity? Vishnu Prem, Bhagavad Prem. Now, for example, consider Navda Bhakti, the 9 wings, 9 organs of Bhakti, Navda Bhakti. In spite of engaged in Navda Bhakti, if you are not moving towards Bhagavad Prem, then you would not be considered to be worshipping Vishnu. For example, this Bhagvat Katha. If I am doing this Bhagvat Katha, then you see, one can get honor, respect, but not Bhagavad Priti. So we need to be very, very careful, isn't it? Because you have been engaged in listening to Bhagavad Katha for quite some time. We must engage in Katha, we must engage in Bhajan. So it is very important that whatever we are engaging in, with that objective must be very, very clear. So the objective, if it is misplaced, then the fruit, the return that you are about to get will not be actually properly reaped by you. So the objective of devotion, if misplaced, then you will not get the desired or sought after result.
भी भगवत प्रीति नहीं है तो बाहर से देखने के लिए तो वो भक्ति दिखाई देती है कि ये भगत है, भक्ति
If you see, if you merely engage in bhakti, Shravan, Kirtan only for exhibition and not in the real sense of the term, then it only remains an exhibition. And that's the reason in bhakti, therefore it is said in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu that devotion should be such where there should not be any other desire. It should only be to beget the love of Krishna. That is real devotion. In Narad Panchatrak, it is said by Naradji. So Naradji has said in Narad Panchatrak,
ऋषिकेश केवल भगवान की प्रीति के लिए हम यदि भक्ति करते हैं तो सेवनम भक्ति, वो सच्ची भक्ति है.
if we engage in devotion only to get the love of Krishna, then that is real bhakti. So just as you engage in serving a master in the office, you get your salary. Similarly, if you do bhakti and devotion to get something other than bhakti and preeti of love, preeti of Lord, then that is nothing less than a business. So Rai Ramanand says that the basic nature of living entity is the love of Vishnu. And now how to achieve that objective, that also has been mentioned by Rai Ramanand. So Rai Ramanand also elaborates how that goal is to be achieved. So what is that path? Swadharma Acharan. So Swadharma Acharan. What is the meaning of this term? Swadharma Acharan means Varnashrama Dharma.
का जो धर्म है उसको पालन कर,
Ashram, which has been established by the scriptures, by following that one must engage in devotion towards Lord Vishnu. If an individual engages in performing of activities by way of Varnashrama Dharma, then in the life of this living entity, progressively devotion goes on to augment itself. Satagur goes on to multiply. You see, these cannot be purchased from market. That devotion, Satagur, can be created and achieved by way of following Varnashrama Dharma. And eventually, gradually, one will get detached to consumerist approach of the material world. And that is how one would be able to engage more and more in devotion. And the evidence of this is the 5th canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam, where Maharaj Bharat, the eldest son of Rishabdev, so Shrimad Goswami very beautifully says about Bharat Maharaj, that Bharat Maharaj was the king and he was following the Varnashrama Dharma, that is following Kshatriya Dharma. And he followed the Dharma of being a Kshatriya. And because of this, he got to have devotion, dedication, commitment, mood, means entire background to start up for devotion developed. And the element became so strong at one point of time that abandoning everything, renouncing everything, he got engaged himself completely into devotion towards Lord Vishnu. Now, if you recall what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Rai Ramananda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had said to Rai Ramananda that whatever you shall utter with evidence from Shastras. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks Rai Ramanand that if you say that devotion towards Lord Vishnu must be done as per the Shastras and Vedas, then what is the evidence of this? So Rai Ramanand gives the illustration in the form of shloka, which is there before you on your screens.
आराध्यते पंथा नान्यत तत् तोष कारणम। मनुष्य जीवन का साध्य लक्ष्य विष्णु भक्ति है।
The goal of living entity is Vishnu Bhakti, and that Vishnu Bhakti can develop only by way of following Varnashrama Dharma.
तो ये श्लोक में क्या लिखा है?
So the shloka says,
आश्रम आचारवता, वर्ण और आश्रम का जो आचरण करता है,
so those who follow the Varnashram Dharma, so who follows Varnashrama Dharma? Cat, dogs, horse, donkey. Who follows? Living entity, which is Manushya or Purush, humankind.
तो पुरुषेण यदि कोई मनुष्य
So in case a living entity, a human entity, follows Varnashrama Dharma,
तो वो
then
परम पुरुष भगवान विष्णु की आराधना से भगवान विष्णु को प्राप्त कर लेता है, भगवान
Then
विष्णु को प्रसन्न कर लेता
he is able to please Lord
है।
Vishnu.
फिर दूसरी लाइन में अंत में क्या
So
कहा?
by following the Varnashrama Dharma, if an individual follows Varnashrama Dharma,
इसके
he is
अलावा
able to please
भगवान
Lord
विष्णु
Vishnu.
को
And
संतुष्ट
other
करने का
than
और
this,
कोई उपाय नहीं है।
there is no other way to please
न
Lord
अन्य
Vishnu.
न अन्य तत्
So there is no other
परम
way with the
संतोष
help of which
संतोष
one
कारा।
can go on to please Lord
इसको छोड़ के
Vishnu.
भगवान
And
विष्णु
what
को
is that
संतुष्ट
way?
करने
The
का
way
क्या
of following the
क्या उपाय
Varnashrama
है?
Dharma. So the
वर्णाश्रम
only way
आचार
possible
बता।
in which
ध्यान से
a
सुनिए,
human
इस
can go
प्रवचन
on
में
to
एक चीज
please
भी मिस हो गई
Lord Vishnu, it is
आपकी
by
तुम्हारी बात
following
वापस कर दिया,
Varnashrama
प्रवचन भी
Dharma.
गलत हो
And
जाएगा।
by
क्योंकि
following
इतनी बड़ी
Varnashrama Dharma,
शानदार
one
बात
would
होती
be
है।
able to engage in devotion towards
सुनो,
Lord Vishnu.
वर्णाश्रम का आचरण करके
So by
व्यक्ति
following and
स्वयं
observing Varnashrama
संतुष्ट हो
Dharma,
जाता है,
an
प्रसन्न हो जाता
individual is in a position to please Lord
है। दो
Vishnu.
प्रकार के हुए वर्ण और आश्रम।
So there are two things here,
आपने अभी कुछ
Varna
चार
and
वर्ण और
Ashram.
चार
So
आश्रम
there are
पढ़े।
4 Varnas and 4
चार वर्णों
Ashramas.
से
What are
ब्राह्मण,
those 4 Varnas?
क्षत्रिय,
Brahman, Kshatriya,
वैश्य,
Vaishya and Shudra. And
चार
what are the
आश्रमों से
4
बनकर
ashrams?
गृहस्थ,
Brahmachari,
वानप्रस्थ और
Grahastha,
सन्यास।
Vanprastha and Sannyas. These are the 4
इन
ashrams.
चारों के लिए मतलब इन आठों
So
के
for
लिए
all the 8
अपने
elements, the
कर्तव्यों
Varna
को
and
लेकर चलना
Ashrama,
है।
there are
जो
specific
आप लोग फॉलो करते हैं,
duties,
आप सब लोग तो गृहस्थ
ascribed to
वानप्रस्थ
all the
सन्यासी
Varnas and
चतुर्वर्ग
Varna and also the
ब्रह्मचारी
ashrama,
ब्रह्मचारिणी, आप सब तो
ashramas.
पहुंचे हुए सब भक्त हो।
And I am very confident each one of you are
लेकिन
great
फिर भी वो
devotees. You
बोलते
follow
जिज्ञासा
Varnashrama
हो कि
Dharma.
वर्ण और आश्रम का
And
आचरण
just in
करने के
case
लिए
some of you are
कहा गया है,
curious that
तो भाई
it is
किस वर्ण का
required
क्या
that
आचरण करना चाहिए जानना चाहते हैं?
Varnashrama Dharma must be followed,
यहाँ नहीं
then
लिखा, मुझे
which
उसी
Varna,
पुराण में जाना पड़ेगा।
which Varna
820 का वर्णन है।
is ascribed what
तो
particular
श्रीमद्
dharma
भागवतम
or what particular code of
27
conduct.
स्कंद के 11वें अध्याय के 21वें श्लोक से 24वें श्लोक, 4 श्लोक में चारों वर्ण के कर्तव्य बताए गए हैं। अब मैं आपके बीच में ये रखूंगा, नारद मुनि ने युधिष्ठिर महाराज को ये सब बताया।
So Narad Muni had gone on to develop upon the duties of different varnas
इसमें कौन
and
सी
the
चीज
ashramas to Yudhishthir Maharaj.
यदि आप उस ब्राह्मण में हो,
Now, when I would explain this to you, you
तो
have
फिर
to
आप
decide
इसको
which
फॉलो कर रहे हो कि
varna
नहीं।
do
फिर
you
आज से अपने आप
fall
को ब्राह्मण
in,
कहना बंद कर
and
दो,
then you have to
क्षत्रिय
test
कहना बंद
whether
कर
you're
दो,
following that
और
varna
अपने आप
and
को
ashrama
वर्ण
duties
समझना
or not.
शुरू कर दो। अरे हम लोग वर्ण में है ना किसी एक वर्ण को तो स्वीकार करना है।
So you can now
कोई
test
मुझे कारण
yourself
तो होना चाहिए
the
कि
varna in
नहीं,
which
देखो
you are
मैं इसी
placed,
को फॉलो कर रहा हूँ।
whether you are following the
श्रीमद् भागवत
ascribed
की पहले
duties
पहिए
or
आपने देख
not.
लिया, ये प्रमाण के साथ राय रामायण
So
कहते हैं
the
वर्ण
duties
आश्रम आचार
are
वता
mentioned
का
in
सब
Shrimad
पालन
Bhagavatam.
करेगा, वो भगवान विष्णु को प्रसन्न करेगा। तो आइए अब हम देखते हैं, पहले ब्राह्मण से शुरू करें क्योंकि
So let us start with Brahmins, because most of you are Brahmins who are sitting over here.
ये हैं ब्राह्मणों के कर्तव्य। कई बार
So
क्वेश्चन
these are the duties of a Brahmin.
दीक्षा लेनी है, क्या करना चाहिए? ये करो तो ब्राह्मण दीक्षा होगी, है? और यदि इसमें से एक भी चीज नहीं तो लेना मत ब्राह्मण दीक्षा, अपराध के अलावा और कुछ नहीं करोगे। ब्राह्मण दीक्षा लेने के लिए ये सब होना चाहिए। और जो अपने आप को ब्राह्मण मानता है, ब्राह्मण कुल में जन्म लिया है, जिसका जो ब्राह्मण वर्ण का है, सबसे पहले उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि वे इन चीजों को करें।
So what is the prime duty of the Brahmins? The duty is ascribed here and it is to be followed and observed by the Brahmin. संतोष
आर्जवम् ज्ञानं दयाच्युतात्मात्वम् सत्यं ब्रह्मलक्षणम् सत्यं च ब्रह्मलक्षणम्। ब्राह्मण के कर्तव्य क्या है? सो ब्राह्मण को सबसे पहले है श्रम।
So what are the
श्रम का अर्थ होता है अपने मन
duties of a Brahmin? First is sham, means controlling the heart, controlling the mind.
अब ब्राह्मण का पहला ही कर्तव्य हम
The first duty is to have control over mind and heart.
फिर भगवान को संतुष्ट करे, ये क्या कैसे हो सकता है? भक्त तो बाद में बनो, पहले आदमी तो बनो। भगवान ने हमें मनुष्य बनाया है और मनुष्य को कैटेगराइज किया गया है, तो पहले अपनी कैटेगरी तय करो। मैं ब्राह्मण हूं तो मुझे ये फॉलो करना है।
So, you see, first of all, decide which category do you fall in, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. Then you must follow the particular duties prescribed for you.
तो मुझे वो फॉलो करना है, लेकिन फॉलो तो कुछ करें। पहले तो इनमें से लोगों को यही तय नहीं होता है कि मैं हूं क्या।
See, unfortunately, people do not know which category do they fall in.
तो देखिए, ब्राह्मण का सबसे पहला कर्तव्य है शम। शम माने अपने मन को वश में रखना।
So it's very important to keep your mind and heart under control for a Brahmin. The second duty is damaha.
अपनी इंद्रियों का दमन करना, अपनी इंद्रियों
Be able to have control over sensory organs. That is Brahmin. The third duty is tapa, meditation and penance. The life of a Brahmin should be towards meditation and penance, simple living, simplicity. So not much consumerism.
तपस्या की ओर अपने आप को ढालना चाहिए।
So he must move towards
कम समाज से लेना और समाज को बहुत कुछ देना, है ना। अपना जीवन तप की ओर आगे बढ़ना चाहिए।
towards the society. This is the duty of a Brahmin.
शम, दम, शौचम।
Shaucham is the next one. The fourth duty of Brahmin is Shauch, means holiness, piousness.
से पवित्र होता है। एक तो बाहर से, बाहर की पवित्रता आती है स्नान करने से।
Outwardly, holiness or piousness by way of bathing, and inward holiness and the piousness by way of chanting the Mahamantra.
का पांचवा गुण है
The fifth duty is, or the fifth quality is patience.
भगवान वामन देव बलि महाराज के द्वार पे गए।
Recall,
महाराज ने कहा मैं खुश
Lord
हूं,
Baman
मांग लो।
went at the doors of
करोड़ों रुपये चाहिए,
Bali Maharaj.
गहना।
So Bali Maharaj said, ask me whatever you want to have.
और ब्राह्मण संतोषी होता है।
Baman said that since I am a Brahmin, Brahmin must be full of patience. I only want,
नहीं ले लिया।
the land worth 3 of my steps.
ब्राह्मणों को संतोष होना चाहिए।
So Brahmins must be full of patience.
वचन होगा तब न्याय मिलेगा इन श्लोकों को। बहुत सारी बातें होती हैं, श्रम कैसे। अब देखो ये संतोष,
Imagine patience.
व्यक्ति के जीवन में संतोष आ जाता है ना।
If a person gets to develop patience in his life, his body starts radiating a unique radiation.
की इमारत में रहने वाला आदमी satisfied नहीं है, संतोषी नहीं है।
You see a person living in multi-storied building
नहीं होता।
is not having patience. His body does not have any radiation or aura. He does not have a specific radiance on his face.
दुनिया में सभी वस्तुओं में संतोष होना चाहिए।
Leaving one thing aside, one must have patience amongst all the objects of the world. And what is it? Devotion. You should not have devotion. You must not have patience when it comes to devotion. You should always remain dissatisfied and impatient.
और फिर आगे कहते हैं शांति।
And then next is Shanti.
शम, दम, तप, शौच,
Shauch.
संतोष और शांति। छठा गुण है
Sixth is
ब्राह्मणों का छठा कर्तव्य
Shanti or being peaceful.
शांति का अर्थ होता है क्षमा।
So Shanti here means forgiveness.
लक्षण है ब्राह्मण का, ये रिस्पांसिबिलिटी।
One of the quality of Brahmin, one of the responsibility of Brahmin is to forgive others.
की नहीं और ब्राह्मण क्रोधित श्राप देते रहना ब्राह्मण का धर्म नहीं, क्षमा करना।
Hurling curses again and again is not the nature of
यहाँ इतना तो
quality of being a Brahmin.
ब्राह्मण कभी क्रोध नहीं करता।
So if you talk about forgiveness, Brahmin should never get angry or never speak ill words or bad words.
ब्राह्मण का धर्म। सातवां कर्तव्य है
The seventh quality or duty is Archavam. He must be simple, not complicated.
आठवां गुण है ज्ञानम।
Eighth quality is knowledge.
ज्ञान में सराबोर रहना चाहिए।
He must be immersed in knowledge. He must be filled with knowledge.
तो ज्ञानी होना चाहिए, ज्ञान।
He must be knowledgeable.
कि ज्ञान अर्जन करे और समाज को ज्ञान दे। बाकी ब्राह्मण को अपनी जीविका के लिए इतना मेहनत करने की जरूरत नहीं।
So you see, ideally the Brahmin must be engaged more in acquiring and distributing knowledge. He should not be unnecessarily engaged in looking for economics.
जो खुद पवित्र है, खुद ज्ञान ग्रहण करता है और दूसरों को ज्ञान देता है, उस ब्राह्मण के लिए अन्य तीनों वर्ण मेहनत करे, उनका ध्यान रखे। ये एक दूसरे जो वर्ण है एक दूसरे में कनेक्टेड है। आजकल खैर अभी आगे फिर आगे हैं
The
नौवां
next
गुण
duty is
दया।
daya,
ब्राह्मण में दया होनी चाहिए। दया से तो सीधा अर्थ
means kindness.
ब्राह्मण नॉनवेज नहीं खाता है।
You see, Brahmin does not take non-veg because somebody who is driven by kindness would never kill some other entity, living entity, and eat non-veg. That means Brahmin does not engage in meat eating or intoxication and tobacco, etc. Imagine some Brahmins wearing genuine, engaging in intoxication and meat eating. Absolutely too much of undoing of being a Brahmin. Next is Atmanam.
अच्युत आत्मनाम।
Achyut Atmanam.
कृष्ण के प्रति आत्मनाम माने कृष्ण परायण।
So the next quality of Brahmin is the Brahmin
मति गति होनी चाहिए।
should be completely devoted in all his ways towards Krishna or Lord Vishnu. This is the duty of a Brahmin.
सत्यम च।
And then next it says Satyam Cha,
बोलने वाले नारद जी
means
सत्यम च का अर्थ
he must always speak the truths. So being truthful is also the duty of being a Brahmin. He should never tell lies.
तो वर्णाश्रम धर्म में
And hence in Varnashrama Dharma, the Brahmin, if he follows these duties ascribed, so Lord Vishnu automatically becomes happy with that living entity.
हासिल करना चाहिए, ये कर्तव्य निभा।
So these qualities must be developed and attained by us.
आगे बढ़े, क्षत्रिय के गुण क्या
So now let us talk about the duties of a Kshatriya, Shaurya, Virya, the fifth stage, Yak Atma Jaya Shama, Brahmanyata Prasadascha, Rakshacha, Shatru Lakshanam.
क्षत्रिय के क्या लक्षण है?
So what are the indications of being a Kshatriya? Valor, strength.
क्षत्रिय में वीरता होनी चाहिए, क्षत्रिय वीर होना चाहिए।
So he must
एक बार
be
देश में युद्ध
a warrior.
और एक क्षत्रिय अपने घर से पत्नी को कहकर निकला कि बस अब मैं जा रहा हूँ, मार दूंगा, काट दूंगा, तोड़ दूंगा, भांग के भूखा कर दूंगा। तलवार लेकर घर से निकला, 15 मिनट के बाद घर पर वापस आया। पत्नी ने कहा आप तो युद्ध करने गए थे। बोले गया तो था, लेकिन रास्ते में 2-5 कुत्ते भौंकने लगे तो मैं घर पर आ गया। तू कोल्ड कॉफी पी के सो जा, तू क्षत्रिय कहलाने के लायक नहीं है। क्षत्रिय जो होता है वीर होता है।
So Kshatriya is always courageous.
बहन बेटियों के लिए
Or Kshatriya for mother, daughter, sister, mother country. The Kshatriya would always be, forthwith to lay his life for the protection. So being courageous. Next is Viryam Parakram.
धैर्यशाली होना चाहिए।
He must exercise patience.
तलवार और बंदूक मिल गई तो बस
It should not so happen that if he has a weapon in hand, he would kill even the innocent. He must have that patience.
तेज
Then is Teja.
होना चाहिए।
He must be full of radiance. Tyaga is giving up.
है कि उनके जीवन में त्याग, जैसे भगवान रामचंद्र
As Lord Ram did. He gave up upon his kingdom. but he gave up and still he remained balanced. So he must be ready to even give up and abandon. Atma Jaya means he should be able to have control over mind and intelligence. Imagine if a Kshatriya king is not able to have control over his mind and body, then what kind of control would he able to have on his subjects? So first thing that he needs is to have a control on his mind and body. So just like Brahmins, he must also have the quality of being able to forgive. You see, being kind and being able to forgive is a quality which is to be looked in all the four varnas. Next quality of being a Kshatriya is that he must serve the Brahmins. He must be a devotee towards Brahmins. He must serve the Brahmins. He must protect the Brahmins. So that, you see, the Brahmin is able to bring transformation in the society. Then what is very much needed for a Kshatriya is always to remain happy. So the leader of an office comes under the category of being a Kshatriya. The Prime Minister is a Kshatriya category. So you see, we see Prime Ministers and President never laugh. Here it is written that the Kshatriya must always remain happy. He should be ever smiling. Next is protection, defense, protecting the subjects, protecting the kingdom. Now you need to decide whether you are a Brahmin or you are a Kshatriya.
अब आगे कहते हैं वैश्य जो व्यापारी है, जो वैश्य है, उनके लिए क्या धर्म है? श्रीमद् भागवत के 7वें स्कंद में कहा, देव गुरु अच्युतेर भक्ति.
Dev Guru Achyuter Bhakti. The one who is a Vaishya is God. So a Vaishya should have a natural devotion towards Lord, towards Guru. So he must have inclination towards God and Guru. So the three Purusharthas, Dharma, Arth and Kam. So a Vaishya must be engaged towards the three pursuits, Dharma, Arth and Kam.
मुझे रिटायर पसंद ही नहीं है. रिटायर शब्द ही ठीक नहीं है. कहां से रिटायर? यदि हम भौतिक से रिटायर हुए तो अध्यात्म में लगे हैं. रिटायर होना ये हमारा धर्म नहीं है. अध्यात्म में लगना ये हमारा धर्म है.
To retire is not our dharma, but to engage in dharma is our duty. Especially the class of Vaishyas, if they give up upon their enterprise and hard work, then their mind and body will not remain stable.
लोग बिजनेस करते हैं, काम करते हैं, वो सोचते हैं कि हम फ्री होंगे ना तो भजन कर पाएंगे. और फिर सैटरडे संडे या लॉन्ग हॉलीडे आती है ना.
So sometimes people say that once we would be free, we would engage in bhakti and devotion. And when Saturday, Sunday or weekend comes, they do engage in devotion, but it does not have the intensity. So you see, what is important is that along with the enterprise, one must engage in devotion. Next quality or duty is he should be a believer. A Vaishya should be a believer in God. And next is hardworking, being an enterprise. So by engaging in hard work, the mind and intelligence will remain pure. The Vaishya must be an expert. What kind of expert? So he must be balancing, able to balance both his material and spiritual life. Now the fourth varna, the Shudra varna, what are the qualities or duties ascribed?
चतुर्थ को चाहिए कि सन्नति, सन्नति माने विनम्र रहे।
So he must be humble.
शूद्रस्य सन्नति।
What is important for Shudra is to be humble.
कि वो विनम्र, सन्नति माने हम्बल रहे,
He must stay humble.
पवित्र रहे, सेवा, अन्य तीनों वर्णों की सेवा में लगा रहे। स्वामिनी अमायया माने चतुर्थ वर्णों को चाहिए कि अपने स्वामी के प्रति,
The fourth varna, which is Shudra, is required
स्वामी के प्रति निष्कपट भाव से काम करे।
that he must serve selflessly his master.
अमंत्र यज्ञ ही, बिना मंत्र के वैदिक यज्ञ करे।
Without the mantras, he must engage in yagna.
चोरी न करे।
He must not steal.
अर्थ को चाहिए कि वे चोरी न करे।
He should not engage in stealing.
देव सत्य बोले।
He must always speak the truth
रक्षणम, गाय और ब्राह्मणों।
and must protect the cows and the Brahmins.
अब मैं केवल एक ही प्रश्न पूछना चाहता हूँ।
Now, the only question that I want to shoot to you is that
इनमें से हम कौन हैं?
which category do you people fall in?
तो पहले तो हमें ये तय होना चाहिए कि हम किस कैटेगरी में हैं, क्योंकि ये भगवान ने निर्माण किया चतुर्वर्णमया। तो ये हुए चार वर्ण, फिर इसी के साथ साथ जुड़े हुए हैं चार आश्रम, जैसे
Along with these four varnas are the four ashramas. For example, up till 25 years, one must follow the Brahmacharya ashram.
नहीं करना है तो
And from 25th year of age, if one wants to get into the householder life, then as per the householder dharma,
पेपर को साक्षी नहीं बताइए,
must follow the householder life or become a brahmachari.
साक्षी रखकर किसी स्त्री के साथ विवाह करे।
So he must have
50
a
साल उम्र होने पर
life partner. At the age of 50, the wife and the husband must go for Vanprastha ashram.
वर्ष के बाद 75 वर्ष के बाद
And from 75th year age onwards, if
75
the
साल
life continues, then sannyas must be adopted. Though it is tough in the age of Kali Yuga.
आएगी नहीं, इसलिए माताओं को चिंता करने की जरूरत नहीं है। आपके पति लोग आपको छोड़कर जाएंगे नहीं, क्योंकि 75 के बाद जीने लायक बचेंगे तो सन्यास लेंगे। नहीं तो क्या ना, मैं शुरू में जब इस प्रकार से कहता था तो पत्नियां चिंता में आ जाती थी कि हमारे पति 75 साल के बाद हमें छोड़कर चले जाएंगे, कहीं नहीं जाने वाले हैं, ये पूरी दुनिया को छुड़ा देंगे, खुद कहीं नहीं छोड़ने वाले। तो इस प्रकार से वर्ण और आश्रम धर्म का पालन यदि कोई करता है, और वर्ण और
So in this way, if somebody do subscribe in real sense of the term varna and ashrama system. Now, recall what was the question? What is the ultimate objective of a living entity? And Rai Ramanand said the ultimate objective is the love of Vishnu, and to attain Vishnu's love, that is varnashrama system. Now, after listening to all this, what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Was he very happy? No. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rather asked Rai Ramanand, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Oh Ramanand, whatever you said, I did not like it. Move ahead." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected the proposition that the ultimate objective of a living entity must be to get Vishnu's love by way of Varnashrama Dharma. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected the proposition of the way through which Vishnu's love and devotion can be attained. Vishnu's bhakti can be attained. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Tell me something different, something more higher than this." So Rai Ramanand would now talk about highly placed things for Vishnu's devotion. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would again object, and in this manner, Rai Ramanand would go on to explain different levels. There's it is not a case that something or the other is wrong and something particular is correct. Rather, we need to see at which level progressively, what is suitable or where do we fall. So gradually and eventually we must strive to move towards progressive levels to reach the Radha element, the Radha Bhav. So step by step, we will go on to develop one after the other.
सुनते समय आप कि महाप्रभु की ये बात को सुनकर कि बोले ये ठीक नहीं है आगे कहो तो कहीं ऐसा ना हो जाए
So sometime, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that, oh Ramanan, move to something else rather than this should not lead to a situation to you wherein you reject the previous step and you go on to the next step and again you reject the next step. So what I'm trying to say that you should not abandon anything. Our Shastras are actually meant for each one of us who are placed in different categories. So
अपनी चेतना को प्रोग्रेस कराना
we
है
would go on to explain different levels would be exposed to you, and as per your requirement, you would go on to choose that level.
सही पढ़ाया जाता है लेकिन हम किस कैटेगरी के हैं और हमें किस ग्रेड में बैठना है ये हमें तय करना होगा
Now, for example, there is a school from class 1 to class 10. Every class lecture is going on and they are being taught the right thing. It is we who have to decide that which grade do we fall in, and accordingly we must occupy a seat in which particular grade. For example, if we actually belong to grade 9 and we go to class 10, then it would be our problem, our
माधुर्य माधुर्य में
fault that we are settling in class 10 grade.
यूनिवर्सिटी में पहुंचाएंगे तो फिर
So
हम
from basic school, we will go to university level, which is that of Radha Rani. So it is we who have to highlight that what is the level of our consciousness, and according to our level of consciousness, we must choose the level.
उसमें हम इसे सुनेंगे और जीवन को धन्य करेंगे आप सबने बड़े
So we will eventually develop upon this in the days to come. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of the viewers, each one of the devotees. Special gratitude to the Makwana family, Meter Bhai and Parvati Ben, who have organized this very beautiful Bhagvatam Katha on the occasion of Radha Ashtami. And hence, Dal Bhai, Bimla Bhai, Bimla Ben, Keur Bhai and Ankur Bhai, and also their respective families, I extend my tons of thanks. So let us bring a close to this day's Katha. And we shall meet tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Radhe Shyam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Radhe Shyam.